Yeah, all right. Yeah. Not that many. Were you there last year, the year before? I turned up like sort of 10 o'clock in the morning. I turned up with a hangover. Right, and then they started talking, and they all just threw rock cabbages at me for like an hour. But like this time it was. This time it was a year later. It was like a lot better. Yeah. But having said that, we went in anyway. Amazing was last year. Yeah. This is what they've done. Oh, okay. Oh, that's good.
I know that you were trying to desperately organise a quite a big team in Wellington. Now that Mr. Tinkler's leaving Fielding Council and going down to become the CEO of Engineering New Zealand.
Yes, I know he's doing that.
You're just building a team.
I know. I don't like drawing attention to myself. That guys. Good luck. You'd be great.
Well-known people who would die during the year. Like you order through the people.
Welcome back, colleagues. We will recommence our meeting of the Environmental Sustainability Committee with item 10 on the agenda, progress towards actions in the Waste Management and Minimization Plan, page 67 on your papers, and invite Mike Monahan, the Water and Waste Operations Manager, to the table.
Through you, Mr. Chair, could we invite Natasha Hickmott to join us for technical expertise?
Certainly. Welcome, Natasha.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, councillors. Thank you for this opportunity to present this memorandum, Progress Towards Actions in the Waste Management Minimisation Plan 2019. The plan, which we affectionately refer to as the WIMP, is a 6-year plan which sets a target to increase diversion of waste from landfill from 38% to 48% by 2025. To achieve this, there are 26 actions in the plan, which cover a range of initiatives from regulatory function reviews to education and engagement programmes. Each paragraph in the memorandum has a reference code which points back to the relevant actions in the WIMP. The Waste Management Minimisation Plan sets out priorities and strategic framework for managing waste in the city. The plan also aligns with and supports other strategies and plans, such as the Eco-City Strategy and Supporting Waste Plan, Central Government Direction in Waste Management, and the Horizons Regional 1 Plan. The memorandum has presented summary actions which have been completed, ongoing or business as usual actions, actions that have started and are on track, and these actions typically span 1 or more calendar years. And Section 4 summarises actions that are behind schedule. So despite an unprecedented year of challenge, including staff changes, a unit restructure, and a response to the global pandemic, of the 22 actions that required addressing, only 3 are behind schedule. Mr. Chair, I'd like to present the memorandum as read, and we're happy to take questions from the members.
Thank you, Mr. Monahan. Much appreciated. And open up for questions from committee members. Councillor Naylor.
Thanks for the report. Just a few questions. First one, the waste diversion to the target to increase that from 38% to 48% by 2025. How are we tracking to that, and how is that measured? How is that measured?
Okay, that's a great question. Our next scheduled assessment is in 2022. So we don't have any data to say right now how we are tracking. And it's probably worth a comment to say that year 1 of the plan is more around engagement and investigations than actual implementation of actions.
Okay, thank you. And just further question, in earlier reports, it talked about that some of the larger quantities of waste were connected to some of the large institutions, the ICIs, and I'm just wondering, are any of the actions seeking to address the waste in those institutions?
Do you want to take that one?
So yes, there is. So, and I'll have to find the reference number. Sorry, I don't have them all off the top of my head. And that is that one. So that's under CO5. So that's provide additional recycling collection services to non-residential customers to accommodate their needs. So that's where we've employed the business support officer to go out and engage with what we call non-residential customers to offer the services that we offer, both the curbside recycling, larger recycling services than what you get in your curbside, as well as food waste.
Okay, thank you. And just one final question, if that's okay. Page 69 under 3.3, it talks about the rollout of the 40-litre rubbish bags, and I'm just interested to know what the uptake is and how that's been promoted.
Yep, no, I'll take that one. So the 40-litre rubbish bags, it has been quite a slow uptake. I've just got some notes here somewhere. Here we go. So far, we've moved 6,000 bags, and another 8,000, just as a point of interest, were donated during the COVID response. But 6,000 of the bags have gone out to our suppliers. So far, the uptake has been from Mike 10 and from Kelvin Grove Countdown stores. Officers have been working hard with other suppliers to get some uptake on these bags, but it's been quite slow to this point.
And the second part of that question was, how has that been promoted?
By contacts from officers to the stores who currently supply our 60-litre bags.
Okay, can I just ask a further question to that? So my understanding from the website that there were only 2 places that those were sold, but is the selling of those 40-litre bags being rolled out to the other supermarkets and other places where 60-litre bags are being sold?
If they choose to.
Yeah, so it's been offered, but the uptake is that they've not taken us up on that offer yet.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Beattie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your report. 3.2 around the RFID software. Is that an off-the-shelf software product that didn't fit our needs, or what sort of benefits are we missing out because we haven't got it?
Yeah, so the success there has been in the 95% of the bins being chipped. That where we kind of missed the mark a little bit is the software didn't suit our needs. The support for that software package has been very difficult to get good support for. So I think the solution to that is that officers are working internally to see if we can design a bespoke piece of software that will suit the needs of council going forward.
Okay, so is there no other councils sort of got software that I just sort of worry about that if we start, you know, doing our own software, then you get into problems if you change suppliers or whatever down the track, and then if you lose that person in the organisation.
If you don't know.
Yeah.
So part of our engagement is that we're actually working through a process of what our needs actually are. So we've gone back to the drawing board on the RFID project, and we've actually taken the project a bit bigger, and we're looking at the needs across the entire waste activity of all of our data that we collect. So we're looking at what we want to collect, what information we want, how we want to display that information. And then we're going to go out and talk to other councils. That's my first objective, was talk to other councils or other organisations. Problem is, most other councils, we're quite unique in that we do our own collections. Most other councils contract out that service. So they've obviously got their own set of data for the information that they have, and then they get the data they get back from their internal external contractors. So it is a little bit of a tricky space for us because I've been in that unique situation.
Okay. So just going back to my first question, what would be one of the key benefits of the software?
Of the RFID software?
Yeah, yeah, what are we missing out on that we...
In terms of what we've had or what we expected to get from the benefits.
Yeah,
okay, sure.
benefits.
So the benefits we expected or we were looking for from the RFID project was about participation and presentation rates, and knowing at the moment we know that approximately 70% of the people put out a wheelie bin, because we know from the lift data from the trucks how many lifts we get. What we don't know, or the data that we're missing, is it the same 70%? Is there some people that are never putting a wheelie bin out? Are there some people that are putting a wheelie bin out on every opportunity? So that's about what we call both participation. Are they actually participating in the service? And then the next step is the presentation rate. So are they 100% presenters, like, for example, my house is, that we put one out every opportunity, or are they only using it once a fortnight, once a month? And so then if we have that information, then we can go further.
That's good, thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks. I just wanted to ask about the curbside food waste collection service, because I see from the attachment that we're not looking to have any information about that until 2021. So I'm just wondering, in terms of our long-term plan discussions, will there be anything about the curbside food waste collection service coming to the long-term plan for consideration?
So yes, so as part of the proposal that we're putting forward, or I've proposed a plan, sorry, I'm not at the bench. I've proposed a plan to introduce a curbside food waste service, but that is subject to the 2 investigations that would precede the introduction of that. One is the first one that's due to be completed by the end of 2021, and then the second one is the detailed business case for the introduction of a food waste service. So it is effectively, it's a placeholder in the program for the LTP. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. I just didn't want us to do the LTP and then this to come afterwards. Yeah.
Great. Councillor Dingwall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for this report. Looking at the CO5 and I guess the different types of things that end up in landfill, are we measuring things like textiles or recycling textiles, separating textiles out of landfill?
That would be part of the swap analysis, would it?
So the three yearly swap analysis, which is what we call the solid waste analysis protocol, which actually does what I would call a deep dive into what goes into the residual rubbish stream, determines the percentages of different materials that could have or should have been diverted or have potentially diverted. So we do know how much textile from the 2017 swap, the waste assessment, what the percentage in the waste stream was that was going to landfill for textiles. And it was 3.6%.
Cool. And so are there programs that are, I guess, encouraging sort of what council is doing and also what staff are doing around minimising all waste in our organisation. I'm thinking of examples like when you look at sort of day-to-day things. For example, the dog tags that we get for animal control are all plastic, little bits of plastic that last about a month before your dog's chewed it off again. You know, things like when we have Christmas parties and dessert things that are, we end up having little tiny desserts in little tiny plastic bottles. Things like, even today, our sugar and tea is all single serve out here in the hall. Are there programs in place that look at all of those kind of little things that add up?
I think the simple answer is that that's not considered in this memorandum, but there is a lot of work going on at central government level for those single-use plastics, and I think officers will be engaging in virtual forums, I believe, later this month to sort of look at some of those initiatives from central government, but it's not included in this.
Okay. Okay, cool. I think that's enough. Thank you.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the report and a lot of useful follow-up information there from areas of particular interest for elected members. So mine is on CO9, which is 3.6 in the report, about working with the education sector to look at waste minimisation. So I just wanted to dig a little bit into that survey of early childhood education, noting that you're saying it's still to be completed. So how much surveying have we done? How much work is still to go there?
I think that's the work Graham's doing, isn't it? Do you want to take that?
Yep. So we believe there are approximately 70 to 78 facilities in our territorial boundary that work all the way from, you know, the very young all the way up to the high school group. So we've started surveying a certain group, which is the private, it's the private childcare centres, and it's 12 of them. So we've started with the private childcare centres, and we're going to move on to the next group and then the next group, and we're surveying them slowly over time.
Okay, those numbers seem a little light to me, but maybe we can take that offline on the number of centres. Okay, thanks for that.
Councillor Hopperton.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Mike and Natasha. Just to follow up on Councillor Johnson's question, with the curbside food waste, will you be breaking that up into commercial and residential?
So the curbside food waste would be primarily aimed at the residential market, much like our recycling, the rated recycling service does. But in saying that, we do offer through an invoice arrangement to non-residential services. And in fact, we do have a food waste diversion service available to non-residential at the moment on a pay-as-you-go basis and a per pickup of the bin. I think I'll just double check how many engage with us. Is it 20 commercial customers? We could get back to you on how many commercial customers we currently have and the tonnages that are diverted through that system, if you like.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Just a couple questions left for myself here. The first is just thinking about this in terms of a 6-year plan. Just getting into it in the first year, and obviously a lot's changed in this first year in terms of central government finally kicking in around things like product stewardship, container deposit, et cetera, et cetera. How do we go about sort of responding to opportunities that might be presented by central government action within the context of our plan here and keeping that plan as effective as possible?
Yeah. Well, I will again defer to Natasha, but just to say that our staff are actively engaged in the Wasteman's projects. You know, they do actively get involved in these online forums. So we're on top of everything that's happening at central government level. But Nat, you can possibly add some detail there.
So it is true to say, or fair to say, that the ministry have put up quite I would consider it an aggressive or a large program in the waste space, which is fantastic, and there's a lot going on. So that is why I have initiated or have had first discussions with the policy team about an early review of our waste minimisation plan, which is why I have signalled a swap and a waste assessment in the first year of the LTP, and then coming to councillors in the second year of the LTP to review the results of that swap, waste assessment, and the government changes. So as Mike indicated earlier, there's an upcoming virtual forum where TAs will be briefed for 3 hours by the ministry virtually on their upcoming work program and what changes are coming, as well as what we already know or have been alerted to.
Great, thank you. Just following on from Councillor Naylor's question a bit, just around understanding the overall how we're traveling, would want to get your feedback on if we were to ask for an understanding of total tonnage going to landfill and an overall diversion rate, sort of what data sources are in place now and how easy it would be to respond to that sort of direction.
Yeah, I think that's something that we could achieve. It would be based on a tonnage diversion. The composition, we wouldn't be able to give you the data on composition until we've done another full swap analysis. Great, thank you. And final question from myself. Is diving in around the around all the actions. Just interested in E03, which is around establishing the community-led zero waste group, and would be interested if yourself or other officers could comment on sort of what the thinking is in that space as we're trying to catch that up and what the vision is for that. Yeah. So as I alluded to just a wee bit earlier, with staff changes this year, we've just brought on board a sustainability coordinator who is making great strides in that space. And we've already got an initial planning meeting set for the 23rd of September. And we've identified key stakeholders in the community space for that group. What we're expecting from that group is that things like the intent, the focus and the drivers of that group would be discussed, and we'd have a clear indication of where that group was heading. So that the first meeting is on the 23rd of September. So I guess to follow up, given that there's already some groups, albeit at different levels of formation and maturity in the community, sort of how do we make sure that we get the best out of stitching that together, I suppose? Yeah, I think that will ultimately be led from the leaders of that zero group. You know, that initial meeting will be looking for key people from each of those community groups to come together and almost kind of form their own direction with our support. And the sort of level of resource, or I guess what's council bringing to the table then in that? Yeah. Yeah, well, mainly facilitation, you know, and sort of leadership in that group. We've not had a funding conversation yet, but we probably should do that. Thanks. Yeah, I guess not to ask too leading a question in that regard, but, you know, thinking about having a good pipeline of sort of investment ready type ideas to go to the Waste Minimization Fund, et cetera, is that something that could be happening through those sort of forums? Yes. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Councillor Johnson, I believe you had another question.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just had a question about the effect of the proportion of landfill that we pick up compared to private contractors, and whether if that percentage changes, does that affect our waste diversion targets? So, I mean, I don't know roughly what percentage we pick up at the moment. It's about 30–40% or something.
It's not that high.
Is it not even that high?
No, it's not even that high. So
if more people were to move in one direction or the other, how would that affect our waste diversion targets? Or does it not affect it?
Well, it would to a certain extent, because if you look at the waste, if you look at the waste minimisation plan, I'm just trying to find the right page. So that's on page 11, and I'll show it if it's okay, which shows you that from curbside collections, this is I'm specifically talking about the households and curbside collections, is that there is people who use a rubbish bag, for example, those who use the smaller bag, versus those who use the 120, 140 litre bin, versus those who use the 240 litre bin, have different types of ratios and materials in them. For example, and a really good standout one, I guess, is for me is that the people who use the rubbish bag don't generally put green waste in the rubbish bag, but there's certainly green waste appearing in the other two types of bins. Or types of rubbish. So yes, if people were to move to a rubbish bag service, for example, provided by the council, there would be a change in the proportion of material going to landfill. Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great. That appears to be all the questions. Thank you both for presenting that paper. We have the recommendation on the screen in front of us, but just to indicate there's an additional recommendation in the name of myself and Councillor Naylor, and perhaps we start there. The purpose of this additional recommendation is really to address a gap in reporting, and that we've got really good reporting on the individual activities and what's happening in that space. What we don't have yet is a synthesis of the overall picture, how well we're traveling on that goal towards the 48% diversion rate. So this recommendation simply seeks to close that gap, and we've heard from officers that there is an ability to provide that on the basis of the data that does exist. So this simply seeks to ensure that next time this comes in 12 months' time, that we have that additional piece of information available to us. I'll just check with Councillor Naylor if you'd be happy to move the or second the first recommendation as well. Yeah, great, thanks. So open it up for comments on both of these. There appear to be no comments, so we will call for the vote. And that's passed unanimously, which moves us to the final item on the agenda, which is the committee work schedule. And I'll just ask the General Manager, Marketing Communications, to comment on that, including specifically around the sustainability report that we have been expecting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, in terms of the sustainability report, we've received an early draft of this. However, some sections are more progressed than others, and we want to refine that substantially. So it needs further work, and I would recommend, if possible, that it be on the work schedule for the first meeting in 2021. The work schedule of meetings has not been set yet, but expected to be around February, if possible. And I note there would be an opportunity to include the recent information requested, which was around diversion of waste within that report.
Thank you. I'll look to move the work schedule, seconded by Councillor Rutherford. Any comments? Ask for the vote. And that is passed unanimously, which brings us to the conclusion of the agenda. No reira, na mihi nui kia koto, ina mana, ina reo, tena koto, tena tato katoa. Take a few minutes to switch over to planning and strategy. Commence in 5 minutes.
Thanks, Brent.